Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Beanie and welcome back to another video. Guys, I'm sorry I didn't stream last night. As I said in my last video, I was kind of sick and I took some medicine late last night hoping to feel better so that I could stream, but it just kind of knocked me out. It made me sleepy. I passed out, and when I woke up, I felt better, and I feel better today. So we will be streaming today. I'm not sure exactly what time. Sometime between 7 and 10 probably is when we'll start. So be there. Anyways, what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be grading the team affinity rewards for the AL East, as well as the future stars for that were just released yesterday in the new pack. So we're going to be grading 7 players today, and yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Actually, before we get into it, a lot of people have been asking me what the fact numbers mean, because it really is just kind of a number, and I figured I would give you guys a grading scale that I will put up this away, just to kind of help you guys out, just to, you know, see whenever that number pops up, what exactly does that mean. This is probably something I'll do for the rest of my grading videos, just kind of pop this up there just so you guys have a point of reference. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, first up, we have the Orioles reward, the 87 overall Zach Britton. Good card, but a card that I definitely have some concerns about. First of all, he has good per nines, good hit and K per nine, and he has solid walk per nine for a reliever. Usually relievers walk per nines are a little lower. I would say his is about average, you know, maybe slightly above average. Then, fantastic stuff. Really good velo, really good break. But then is the point where I'm like really start to have my doubts about this card. His pitch selection. He has a sinker, 4-seam, and 2-seam. You're basically probably almost never going to use that 4-seam and 2-seam. So he's going to be mostly a sinker slider guy. And that can work really, really well against left-handed pitching. If you have a left-handed hitting, I'm sorry. Against left-handed hitting, you can really pound them with that sinker, break them off with that slider, get them to swing and miss, get them out in front. It's very difficult to hit as a left-handed hitter. But as a right-handed hitter, he almost becomes purely a sinker pitcher, because if you throw that slider and you really don't take care to bury that pitch like way down and in, then you're going to hang it. And if you hang it, it gets hit really hard. And if you kind of leave that sinker out in the middle of the plate, it can sometimes get hit pretty hard. So it's very difficult to pitch to right-handed hitters. In the past, you could throw that sinker and get it to really back into the, like throw it at the hitter and get it to back into the strike zone, like a little backdoor sinker. But this year, especially on the lower levels and all-star veteran difficulty, stuff like that, it's a lot more difficult to do that. So I would not recommend throwing this guy all that often against right-handed hitting. But I mean, he's not completely unviable, but it's going to be more difficult. But against lefties, this guy might be one of the best relief pitchers in the game to face lefties with. So that does have a lot of utility, and for those reasons, I ended up giving him a FAG of a 7.4. Next up, we have the 85 overall Jon Lester, the reward for the Red Sox. And this card, I kind of view him similarly to the Britton, even though he does have better pitch selection. First off, he does have good hit and K per nine. He doesn't have great walk per nine, though, so he might be a little more difficult to control for a starting pitcher. And that's something that you need to look at this year, because it can be tougher to interface with pure analog or meter or whatever it is that you use. And then velocity and break, he has solid velo, really good break actually, and but it doesn't really translate into like amazing stuff when it comes to his individual pitches. He has a 4-seam, cutter, and sinker. All 4 of those are really useful. You can tunnel those pitches together. I like them, especially the sinker. You can really use that to kind of dominate lefties and keep righties off balance, get them to ground out and things like that. But then his secondary pitches are where it kind of starts to worry me. His off-speed stuff, his sweeping curve. That sweeping curve should be really useful against left-handed hitters, but against righties, you might not throw that pitch at all, because it's really easy to hang and it's not that deceptive to a right-handed hitter. It's pretty easy to lay off of. So what other pitch do you go to? You go to that changeup, right? But the changeup really isn't that great either, because it only has at maximum a 9-mile-per-hour delta between the 4-seam and the changeup, and that's not that much. It's not going to keep the right-handed hitters off balance that much. So he might be pretty difficult to pitch to, or to pitch whenever you're facing a righty. I don't think it's going to be impossible to pitch to righties. I think you can figure things out, like kind of staying on the outside corner with that sinker, maybe backing that sinker up like we used to do with Britton, see how that works. Maybe throwing the cutter if the guy kind of has a slow bat, or if you're tunneling the pitches really well, but it is going to be more difficult. And for those reasons, I ended up giving this Jon Lester card a FAG of a 7.1. Next up, we have the 86 overall David Robertson, the reward for the Yankees, and I gotta be honest, I'm not a big fan of this card at all. I'm really not. I know he has great hitting K/9. I know that his stuff is okay, but he has terrible walk per nine, first of all. Really, really bad walk per nine. He's gonna be very tough to control. Secondly, I'm not a fan of his pitch selection at all. I know he has a great cutter. I know that, and I know a cutter can be a really good pitch in this year's game, especially righty on righty. It can be very dominant, but I only like it if you have another fastball to play it off of, to tunnel with. A cutter by itself is not going to be that effective because you know, your opponent can just kind of spit on that changeup and that knuckle curve, sit on the cutter, and whenever you give him a cutter for a strike, he can just pound it because he knows what it's going to be. He doesn't have to worry about if it's going to go straight, if it's going to sink, if it's going to do this or that. He knows that it's going to cut a couple inches, and he can put his PCI there, and he can hit a home run. So if this guy had a sinker or a four seam or anything to go along with that cutter and knuckle curve and changeup, I'd be a much bigger fan of this card. But he doesn't, and that's a problem because, I mean, his knuckle curve is pretty good, I guess, but that changeup really isn't that great either. He only has a 6 mile/hour delta between his changeup and his cutter, so that's really not a great pitch either. It's just, I don't think that this card has the pitches to be a great pitcher in Diamond Dynasty. Now, he does make up for that a little bit with his hit and his K/9. You know, you can mitigate some of that because his hit and K/9 is really good. But the other stuff, I don't see it as really all that viable. So for those reasons, I ended up giving him a FAG of a 6.6. Next up, we have the Rays Award, the 87 overall Ben Zobrist, and personally, this is one of my favorite cards in the game. It's usually one of my favorite cards in the game every year. I think for the early game, this card is an absolute beast, and I think he's very useful. And there are a few reasons for that. One, he's a switch hitter. Two, he's an extremely balanced switch hitter. He has 78 contact, 94 contact versus lefties, 73-74 power with 69 vision. You know, you're going to be hitting basically the same no matter whether you're facing a righty or a lefty. He does hit lefties a little bit better, but not a ton. And then this is where the card begins to get really valuable. The fact that he is a good defender with a solid arm and can play anywhere on the field except for pitcher or catcher. That has so much value, especially early in the year whenever you're trying to fill out all these different holes on your team. This card can play virtually anywhere. I recommended that this be one of the first team affinity programs that you go after, and I stand by that. I think this card is immensely valuable. It gets a big boost on the utility bonus because, you know, you can earn up to 0.5 extra points through the utility bonus. And yeah, I think this card has a ton of value. The utility is a great thing. It's not going to be the fastest guy in the world, but that's okay. Everything else he does really well. And for those reasons, I ended up giving him a FAG of a 7.7. Okay, and then finally for the team affinity in the AL East, we have the 87 overall Edwin Encarnacion. And this card kind of splits me. It kind of polarizes me a little bit because there are some things I like, some things I kind of hate about this card. First off, his defense is atrocious. It's awful. He's going to give up, you're going to give up a lot of runs just because this guy couldn't make a play on a ball. That's just going to be the fact of it. If you plan on using this guy, expect to give up about a fifth of a run extra per game. And that's a lot. It adds up over time, just because his defense is so bad. Now, technically, he can play third base or left field, but you would have to be out of your mind batshit crazy to play this guy at third base or at left field. He's going to be awful out there. Doesn't have any speed either, but that's kind of beside the point for a first baseman. But then hitting, he's a really good hitter, and hitting is the most important thing. But also, I'm not in love with this card as a hitter. I mean, against righties, he has 71 contact, 86 power. Personally, I think that attributes versus righties are more important. And he does have 75 vision to go along with it, so he's a very good hitter versus righties. He's not like an elite hitter versus righties. Now against lefties, he's elite. 84 contact versus lefties with 113 power. That's elite territory. So maybe this is a guy that you want to stick on your bench and use as a pinch hitter whenever you're facing a lefty, and then not really worry about it if you're facing a righty. Maybe you want to roll the dice and kind of put his defense on first base where it doesn't matter, I mean, that much, and just, you know, get his bat into the lineup. But if you're facing a righty, he's just going to be very good. So you have to ask yourself, is that worth it? Or would I rather take a bit of a smaller offensive, you know, would I take someone who's a little bit worse on offense versus righties and lefties to get just a little bit more defense? In my opinion, most of the time the answer would be yes, but only if it's just a small amount. So this card does have some utility in that respect, the fact that he is going to be one of the best hitting first basemen early on in the year, and he does have a small amount of utility, even though I wouldn't personally use it. And for those reasons, I ended up giving him a fag of a 7.4. Okay, next up, they came out with the Future Stars cards, and these are always so much fun because it's prospects who we haven't got to see a ton of, and it's like, if they hit their peak, this is what they're going to be type of card, you know? And first off, we have the Fernando Tatis Jr., and he is just a 5-tool stud, a true 5-tool. There aren't that many in MLB The Show, but this guy is one of them. He is a plus hitter, very balanced, 84-76 versus righties, 75-79 versus lefties. His vision is a little lower, so he's going to strike out some. He's not going to have the biggest PCI in the world, which may affect you at the upper levels, but then he's going to be a great defender with a great arm, good reaction, good speed. He can steal bases. This guy is the real deal. He's the total package. If you're looking for a shortstop or a third baseman, this is probably the guy that I would kind of start looking towards, at least for the first couple months of the season. And yeah, for all those reasons, I ended up giving him a fag of a 7.6. And then finally, we have the 90 overall Eloy Jimenez, offensive monster, who's really not terrible on defense. He's just kind of bad. He's not terrible. Yeah, offensively, 87-88 or 88-87 versus righties, 104-98 versus lefties. That's a beast versus lefties. With 79 vision, he's going to be a true offensive stud for you. And then defensively, you're not going to take that big of a hit with him. 66 fielding with 59 reaction. He's not going to be the rangiest guy in the world, but he does have a nice little 82 overall arm strength. That's not a cannon, but it's pretty good. You know, he'll throw some guys out occasionally if your opponent gets a little too antsy on the base paths. So yeah, he's a good overall player. Personally, I like the Tatis just a little bit better. So I ended up giving this Eloy Jimenez a fag score of a 7.5, just a tenth of a point below the Fernando Tatis, which I think is fair. Even though this guy is a better hitter, I like Tatis's total package just a little bit better. So yeah, guys, that is going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. If you are new, please subscribe. And yeah, I will see you guys in the stream tonight. We will be streaming tonight. And I have another video that I'm thinking about coming out with today. I've got to do a little more research on it before I come out with it, but we'll see. If not, it'll be out tomorrow. But we will be streaming tonight. I feel better, so be there probably sometime between 7 and 10. So in that little 3-hour gap there, I will start the stream. I know that that's kind of a big window, but you know, things happen. I can't have a very strict schedule with the way my life is. So yeah, I will see you guys there. But until then, peace.